Hello and welcome back. We're going to finish up this aquarium stand dresser. On this video, I'm going to start with sand and flat the tabletop, and then we'll route the edges of it, and then we're going to put some trim around the sides and bottom, and then we'll finish up by final sanding and then paint. So stick around. Hope you enjoy it. As usual, we'll be starting out with some lower grits sandpaper, both mechanical and on sanding blocks, and then work our way to some smoother stuff. So the big thing is, 3/4 inch plywood is actually a little bit thinner than 3/4 inch, or this is 1x material, which is also supposed to be 3/4 of an inch, but you'll see it sits just a little proud of that. So all we're gonna do is just sand that down smooth to start with. When I glued it up on the table, I glued it up upside down. So actually the bottom of it is flat, but the way this has to sit on here, if I just left that ridge on the bottom, it would be on this. And so the table would actually be raised just that little bit. So we're gonna sand it smooth. The other piece of this is my camera tripod broke. Basically, it got shut in the garage door and bent one of the legs, fell over and broke the part that holds the just my cell phone camera. So I have a new one arriving today, but that's why I haven't been videoing as much lately. It's kind of hard to set this up, but we'll get going on this part now. Got a straight edge clamped to the wood at the distance between the edge of my bearing and the edge of the guide. And so all I'll have to do is just run it down that straight edge. The next step of this is I'm going to try to make some edge banding here, just to kind of cover up, where the two pieces of plywood meet. And so you can buy this stuff at the hardware store pretty cheap. It's, I don't know, 80 cents a foot or something like that, but I mean, it can still add up. But anyway, I have some extra 1x2 that is from a different project eons ago, and so all I'm doing is I'm making my own with that. All right, Amazon man just came with the new tripod, so we'll give this a shot for a minute. But anyway, all I want to do is cut something like that in there in this 1x2 so it'll fit on. So to start with, what I've done is I've just taken a router bit, and I set the depth and height to cut that notch out. And really you want it to be about whatever the thickness is of your material, about half that. So anyway, you just set the router bit to the right depth and height and just cut a notch out of there. And once you've got that notch cut, so once I've got that made, then I just take it over to the table saw and I set the width of the table saw to cut off the excess, and that sets the thickness of this vertical leg. So one of the legs I get with the router, the other one I get by running it through the table saw. And I'll show you that whole process here on a speedy view. Next up, I'm going to make some trim pieces for the bottom. I'm going to do that by just cutting down some stock on the table saw. This is just some leftover pieces. And I'm going to cut them down to, just a little over an inch, about 1.25 inches, and then I'll round it off, and I'll glue that all along the bottom of this. Now I've just got a 1/2 inch router bit on the router table, and we're just going to route the edges so they curve up into the dresser. Now that we've got them cut out and routed, we just put a little glue on, and then we'll tack them to the sides here. We can go ahead and glue on these corner pieces. And we'll just use glue and nails for that again. All right, I've got the tabletop positioned on there where I want to be, so the overhang is the same on each side. It's the same all the way across the front. So it's just about 1 inch on the front and about 5/8 on either side. Once we're all said and done. Now I have the 2x4s underneath the tabletop all the way around, and then one in the middle. And so what I've done is I've marked where the edge of that 2x4 is on the table. So all I did for that was, I just measured in with this to where the edge of the 2x4 was. And then I transferred that mark to the top. Made a few marks down. So that's the front edge of the 2x4. So I've got this piece of wood, which is half of the width of a 2x4. So I'm just going to line this up on those marks. And that is going to put me just about in the center of that 2x4 all the way down. And I thought about screwing up from the bottom, but I mean, then I'd have to go really long. So I'm going to screw in from the top, which means this is going to be pretty much permanently affixed, because I'm going to, have to put wood filler over the top of these screw heads before I paint. But all I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to mark this line real lightly. And that gives me the center of this front 2x4. And then I'm going to figure out how many of these I'm going to put in here. All right, next up is to drill and countersink where we've marked out all these holes. Got all the structure done, it's all built, so now I'm down to just sanding and painting. And we've got a storm coming in, so I've got a couple hours to be able to work outside with it being a little breezy, which is nice for sanding, because then I don't have to wear the respirator. So a bit of jet noise in the background, so the loop jets are flying hard and a little breezy, but we'll get going on the time lapse here. Get our sanding done. The daily grind of moving everything out of my little closet shop into the garage. And actually, we're going to go ahead and do some sanding outside today. Since the weather's nice. paint sprayer from Harbor Freight, and I mixed up some Bullseye 123 primer and tried spraying it on. And as you can see, my spraying technique, indoor that spray gun, indoor trying to spray primer, which once I thinned out enough for it to get through the spray gun, didn't cover very well and dripped really easily. So you can see, not too good. And I'm gonna paint this gray on the bottom and then a black or charcoal top. So, you know, the coverage doesn't have to be that great on the primer, but I'm gonna have to do a whole bunch of sanding now to fix this up. So that's what we're doing today. I noticed after priming, after I sanded all the primer down, I got rid of all the drip marks and weirdness from that spray primer that I put on, that there's still a bit of grain in this wood. So I'm going to try to hit it with this Goodfilla water-based wood filler on the top, and then I think on the plywood pieces, and just see if I can smooth that out so the finish looks a little smoother and more finished. So I'll get to work on that next. That ended up being a ton of spreading the filler, waiting for it to dry, sanding, hitting it with the air compressor, blowing all this dust off, sanding again, touching up with the wood filler, sanding some more, hitting it with the air compressor again, and then finally a tack cloth. So I think we've got a nice, clean, prepped, relatively smooth surface that I had to be able to slap some paint on, and it ought to stick and look okay. So that'll be our next step, is paint. All right, I picked up 2 cans, 30 ounces each of this Rust-Oleum chalked paint. It's supposed to come out chalky smooth, and then I'll put a wax or a top coat over the top of it to seal it. But I got charcoal for the top, which is almost black, just kind of a matte black. And then I got country gray for the base. So it'll have black top, gray base, sealed, and should be awful pretty, assuming I can paint it. And since I had so much trouble with that paint sprayer, I'm just gonna try to brush it on and see what happens. If anything, you know, between coats, maybe I can hit it with a quick light sanding with a real fine grit paper to kind of get rid of any brush strokes, but we'll see how it goes. All right, now that we're all stirred up, we'll go ahead and start painting. For painting the doors, drawers, and the base, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to caulk the seams around the rails and stiles on the base frames, and then around the edging on the base. So we'll get to that right now. Just put a real thin strip all along here. Just kind of get it down in the crevice. My glove, rag, and then just it out here. It's all mixed up. Time to put on our chalky smooth country gray. And I added a little water to it this time, like less than ½ an ounce. Just a few spritzes to make it a little bit thinner, hoping that'll leave less brush marks than it did last time. And this does seem a lot thinner than when I did the black. So we'll see. Maybe that water helps, maybe not. I'll try to get pretty good coverage on this first coat. I've used this finishing wax on several projects now, and I really like how it turns out. So I'm going to try it here on the top and see if we like it. If not, I can always sand it down and recoat the top with something different. As you can see, this stuff is pretty easy to apply. You just kind of get a good dab of it on a clean rag and then rub it in. This stuff has some pretty deep brush marks, so even though I did the grain filler and all that, that chalk paint left some pretty good brush marks. I don't know if that's just my technique for brushing it on. I'd never really used chalk paint before, or whether it's just the nature of that paint. But left quite a bit of brush stroke. So I want to make sure this gets down into all the grooves of that. And I think it would have helped if I had done more painting, you know, in both directions. Kind of spread it out a little bit before I, you know, did my last brush strokes through it. But oh my gosh, this stuff dried so fast that, I mean, you had no time to work with it. So I think if I had to do it again, I would thin it out quite a bit. With water, it says you can put up to 2 ounces per quart there, so I think I would have done it. I think I would have thinned it out as much as it'd go, just to have more working time with it before it started tacking up and drying. But we'll just have to see next time I make something with this chalk paint. Maybe a different brush or changing my technique, and then thinning out the paint would help. But like I said, I'd never really used this stuff before, so everything is a learning experience. All right, now we just let this dry up for a bit, and then so we'll give it like 10-15 minutes to dry and harden, and then I'll buff it out with another clean lint-free rag. As far as clean lint-free rags go, I just use cut-up t-shirts. All right, we're on our second coat now, and I just wanted to show you how we buff it off. Basically, just get another clean rag and small circles, just buff it out. Reminds me of, I'm sure it's probably close to the same stuff, but polishing shoes. In this particular case, back when combat boots were black, and you'd have to polish black combat boots, it was the same kind of process. Just wiping it on, and small circles wiping it off. We'd use a little bit of water, obviously, to make it shiny, but don't need to do that with this. Anyway, here we go. First coat to dry on the top, I went ahead and put the drawers and the door back on. Had to do a couple little touch-ups on one of the top of this drawer, but they're all back in. And I think for the rest of it, I kind of like that just regular chalk paint finish. So I think we'll just have the wax here on the top, you know, because this is where the aquariums are going to be sitting, and so I just want to make sure that it's got just a little extra layer, I mean, between the priming and the grain filling, and then 2 thick coats of paint. I just want to make sure that, you know, if it gets a little water splashed on it or something, it's not going to wreck the material underneath. So I think we're just about done. I got to figure out what we want to do for drawer pulls. And then to decide whether, I kind of like it like this, but it would also be nice, I think, if either these face frames were a different color, or if I put just a little bit of maybe black around, you know, on the inside of the face frame. So I'll figure that out here shortly. But other than that, we're like 99% complete. All right, last step here is to put the hardware on the drawers and the doors. So I picked up a couple of black door pulls to go on, and then I'll put one on the cabinet door as well. So we'll get going on that, and then we'll be all finished up. All right, to figure out where to put this, I'm gonna figure out where the center of this door is. So it's 24 inches across. So I need to put it at about, just put a little mark here at 12 inches. 18 inches, so 6.5. Now what I want to do is I've taken a nail, just a little nail, and I wrapped some painter's tape around it to center it up in the hole of our bracket here. So I'll put the center of this on the center of that line. Center of this on the center of that line. That is 2 inches across, so all of it's about 1 inch. All right, 3/16 inch drill bit. Ooh, that's not quite long enough. So, drill it in at the back so I can countersink it because these bolts aren't quite long enough to fit all the way through. Level. Did it right. And there she is, all finished up. Charcoal gray on the, or sorry, charcoal on the top, and then gray on the bottom. Just a coat of wax on the top, and just paint on the bottom. You got nice full extension drawers here. So it's both 9 inches deep, and then a cupboard with a couple of shelves in there. And she's all finished up and ready to go. For those of you watching, thanks again for following along on another one of these videos. Hopefully you see some stuff that either inspires you or inspires you to leave a comment about stuff that I can do better for next time. So like I said, I'm obviously still a novice woodworker, just putting stuff together and enjoying the heck out of it. So hope you followed along with my frustrations and successes, and we'll see you again on the next video. Thanks again for watching.